and the Genesis Outstanding Pathway to Governance Leadership Award 2021. Recognized as a great warrior of humanity by the International Human Rights Advisory Council, she received the Secretary-Relate Award and appreciated by UNICEF and the Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, Bangalore for COVID-19 research in 2020. She received citations and commendations from 18 universities and felicitated by 14 institutions. She got the NLM UNESCO Award 2000 for Karnataka with her work in literacy and the Karnataka Ratna Award for Kaveri Handicraft 2013. Dr. Kalpana is advisor, Bangalore City Corporation, honorary consultant, Administrative Training Institute, Mysore, member, Public Secretary, Sectors Advisory, Grant Thornton India, member advisory board, World Congress on Women, and advisor, Government Blockchain Association India. She did her doctorate and master's in public policy from Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. Dr. Kalpana was rated among the top 2% of doctoral candidates in past decade for her research on infrastructure, public-private partnership. A gold medalist and university topper in her undergraduate and master's, having international exposure including visiting fellow at McGill 2011, Concordia 2008 universities in Canada, EU fellow in the University of Salerno in Italy 2011, Chevening Gurukul Scholar, Institute of Development Studies UK 1997, Maxwell Public Policy Scholar in Syracuse University, USA in 2002. She trained in evidence for policy design in the Center of International Development, Howard University, USA 2014. In e-governance strategy in London School of Economics, UK 2017, and Harris School of Public Policy, University of Chicago, USA 2019. She was twice selected as a SAYSSP scholar by the University of Free State, Bloemfontein, South Africa, and the International Institute of Applied System Analysis, 2013 and 2014. She presented paper in national and international fora and have published 4 books, several book chapters and journal articles, and delivered almost 400 talks on different aspects of public policy to national and global audiences. Dr. Kalpana is member advisory board, AIMS School of Business, Bangalore, member Academic Council, Mahatma Gandhi Kashi Vidyapeeth, Varanasi, advisor, GSK Social Labs, Bangalore, member MDP Advisory Committee, Presidency University, Bangalore. She is also Chief Additional Advisor, IJ360MR, Associate Editor-in-Chief, GRDJE, Expert Panel of Reviewers, IIM Bangalore Review, IIM Bangalore, and GRJD, and member Additional Advisory Board of IJBST, IJASRW, and IFERP journals. Let me quote her personal vision, which I'm really impressed that I have the head of an administrator, the head of an academic, and the hands of a volunteer. I desire not to be different, but to make a difference. Yes, ma'am, you are making difference all across the world. Now, without consuming any time, we request our honorable guest speaker, Dr. Kalpana, to address the gathering and cast the light of her knowledge upon us. Dear Dr. Kalpana Gopalan, ma'am, please, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ashish Kumar, for that very detailed introduction and for sharing my vision. Good morning to all of you this Saturday morning, and it is my privilege and pleasure to be with all of you today, and thank you for this opportunity. I express my appreciation to the organizers for their effort on such a vitally important issue. I thought it best that I speak on what I consider a critically important component in sustainability and environmental management, which is our personal responsibility as citizens. So, I will speak on simple, actionable sustainability for the ordinary Indian, for you and me. My talk is loosely structured in 3 parts. I will start the PPT, please. My talk is loosely structured in 3 parts. I will begin with a brief look on some sustainability initiatives globally I will then touch upon my personal experience and then end with how we can and should make sustainability our personal responsibility. Next slide. Next slide, please. Who is sharing the slide? Can you move to the next slide? Discussions around green transformations, how to make economies and societies sustainable. You are in the right slide, just stay there. Discussions around green transformations, how to make economies and societies sustainable, are at the forefront of global, national, and local political agendas. I would like to begin with a peek at global sustainability strategies that are making the news today. In Sweden, and that is the slide you see before you, public-private collaboration has resulted in the IT system Cato that makes use of advanced algorithms to operate railway traffic as energy efficiently as possible. Next slide, please. Dr. Jasminder, next slide. Not that one. Go above. No, above that. Yeah. Here is a picture of vertical farming and urban orchards. Current estimates suggest that by 2050, the world will be inhabited by 9 billion people, 80% of whom will live in cities. To some extent, urban farming will have to happen. But if done smartly, it could revolutionize the way we view food production and create a local food movement for the urbanite. Mixed-use skyscrapers are the perfect example of a smart city concept, putting those tall glass buildings to good use as greenhouses. But at ground level too, mixed-use parks and urban orchards could begin to provide food to the masses. Do you think it couldn't happen? It already did. During World War II, the Dig for Victory campaign saw formal gardens and parks turned into allotments, producing millions of tons of food and effectively defeating German blockades. Next slide, please. Go down. Next slide. Next slide, please. No, about that. The previous slide. Yeah. There are also initiatives happening closer home. More than 1 million Bangladeshis could be displaced by rising sea levels by 2050. One consequence is that children cannot attend school for long periods of time, making it harder for them to escape poverty. By building a fleet of solar-powered school boats, the Bangladeshi initiative, Shidulai Swarnivar Sangstha, has secured year-round education in flood-prone regions of Bangladesh. Each floating school boat collects students from different riverside villages, ultimately docking at the last destination where on-board classes begin. And that is what you see before you. Solar lighting makes the schedule flexible, which provides for additional educational programs in the evening. Shidulai's floating schools model has been replicated in Nigeria, Cambodia, Philippines, Vietnam, and Zambia. Next slide, please. So, next slide. Next slide, please. No, before that, previous one. Yeah. So, what do these pictures tell us? All over the world, change is happening from fossil fuel to renewable energy and from throwaway to circular economy. It is no surprise then that sustainability is the stuff of conferences. We can declaim about sustainability from a podium, then go back home satisfied of a job well done. But if you are having tea during the break and I come to you and say, let us talk about sustainability, what will you do? You will discreetly move away, or at least you will mentally switch off with a muttered, "Ye kya fas gaye yaar?" This is exactly the problem. What does sustainability mean to you? To me, this is a question that no one ever bothers to answer. We live most of our life blissfully unaware and sheltered from the environmental crisis that our planet is facing. Even if we do learn something about it, the problem seems so complex and overwhelming that we give up before we start. Unless and until, in one life-changing moment, the enormous importance of it all hits us suddenly. For me, this life-changing moment came when I sat, just like you are sitting now, as part of a small select audience and listened to Jeffrey Sachs, the economist turned idealist and director of the Earth Institute at Columbia University. Jeffrey spoke beautifully, convincingly. He demonstrated without doubt how great is the crisis that is facing the earth. But I was not completely convinced. And so I dared to ask the great Jeffrey Sachs, why should this be important for me? I am struggling with my daily life, my daily problems. Why should I care? And anyway, what can I, a small lone individual, what can I do? Why should I be my brother's keeper? The measure of a great man's greatness is how he addresses the little man, or the little woman in this case. Jeffrey Sachs's greatness came through in that instant. He embraced, yes, that is the word, he embraced my question, acknowledged the essential moral nature of sustainability, the responsibility it places on each of us, and then laughed that while he could give macro level speeches, he was rather less enthusiastic about recycling in his own home. Next slide, please. So, that is the key note I am going to address today. What is my role? Your role? The role of each of us in sustainability? What are the things that we can do and should do? We Indians bemoan our collective lack of civic sense while simultaneously pardoning our own. This leads to a pervasive hypocrisy in our public discourse, not only on this issue, but on all larger issues. I hope that at the end of the next 10 or 15 minutes, sustainability becomes, for all of us, a subject of our actionable present, not just a doomsday prospect of a common gloomy future. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yes. First, stop, breathe, relax. The pralayam, The disaster may be imminent, but this is a matter for rational action, not fear. Real change and beneficial change takes some time. Second, educate yourself. Read everything you can. Watch documentaries. Enroll in more courses at college or online like Coursera. A lot of stuff goes on in the name of climate science. You will never go wrong if you diligently question the world around you and educate yourself. Information today is available in plenty. The trick is to access and internalize that which is simple, real, and actionable. Third, do. There are so many simple things that one can do without being overawed by labels. Recycling, for instance. It is ironic, laughable really, that we frugal Indians have to learn about recycling from the opulently wasteful Americans. Why? My grandmother, who used to make razais from her old used saris, could teach us a thing or two about recycling. So many of us cousins grew up wrapped in the warmth of her love, as also in her red bandhani covered padded razais. I am sure we can't all go back to quilting, but we also cannot rely on Western solutions because it is either unsuitable to our lifestyle or redundant simply because we are already a careful people. What is the point if we are cautioned against buying a third car when we don't even own one? So, it is left to us Indians to evolve our own methods customized to our own context. And there are so many things that we can do. In a buffet or a wedding meal, just help yourself to what you will eat instead of heaping your plate and wasting the rest. Switch off appliances, lights when not in use. Take along a reusable bag for your grocery shopping instead of asking for one more plastic or even paper bag. Use buckets and mugs instead of allowing the rivers of India to flow into your drains. Grow a small garden. Reduce your garbage. Segregate it. And above all, don't pile it in your neighbor's empty backyard. I am sure each of you will be able to come up with many things that we can do. When I speak of action, there are certain caveats that I would like to make. Be realistic. Start with yourself. Assess where you are and how you can change. Many sustainability converts become over-enthusiastic, trying to change those around them and become frustrated and stop when the others don't come along. In fact, a good way to go is to first formulate exactly what you want others to do, how you want others to behave, and then behave that way yourself. The first steps are local. Look at your usage and make smart changes. If you lived in Rome or Montreal, I would suggest that you walk to work. But here it is not really feasible most of the time. So start with doable changes, then work your way to the bigger ones. Or you can segment your efforts into personal actions, local actions, and national actions and steadily augment your effort. As you know more, you will do more. And then you can expand and intensify your efforts. You can invest in a cleaner car or a greener residence. There is really no end to the things that you can do and will do when you get interested. Finally, there will certainly come a time when you will become a messenger. At that time, tell a compelling story, make it personal, and relate it directly to the individual who is before you so that your audience will care. I think part of our problem is that we still use the old approaches of the traditional environmental movement, using negative reinforcement, lobbing vague threats, focusing on all that stands to be lost. If it is going to survive, the sustainability movement needs to do just the opposite. Paint a picture of how good things could be. Talk about all the great things we will achieve, not all the bad things that we will avoid, and inspire people to change instead of trying to scare them. Last slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you. This is my final takeaway to you. I have only to say sustainability is not someone else's problem. It is mine, it is yours, and all of ours. But you don't need me to say this. Gandhiji said it a long time ago, and you know it already. The earth provides enough to satisfy every man's need, but not every man's greed. The Mahatma, as usual, has summed it better than any of us could ever do. With these closing words, I wish your sustainability efforts all success. Thank you all very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Anybody has any question, anything you want to ask, you discuss, or if anyone want to take any kind of guidance as well, who are also, I will say that the UPSC aspirants. Yes, Saurabh, you can unmute yourself. You can talk.
Ma'am, don't you think the biggest thing, if we want anything sustainable, the biggest problem is our population? No one is talking about that. If we decrease our population, then everything becomes quite more sustainable than it is right now. Any resources or anything.
Populations throughout the world are already decreasing. It is only a few countries, ours included, where the demographics is such that we have a younger population, a burgeoning population. Very soon, ours also will start tapering down, and then we will have the opposite problem of an aging population. India, this would have been before your time, but probably your professors, Dr. Ashish or even Dr. Jasbinder might remember our own efforts at population control during the emergency. They were disastrous. There were anything where you are intruding into personal choice and the lives of people. It has to be voluntary. It cannot be dictatorial. So, while this is a problem, we do have climate change, we do have sustainability issues, even in countries, European countries, where population is not an issue anymore. So, while keeping that, as a realist perspective, we still can and ought to do what best we can, and that is use greener resources, be energy efficient, control our consumption. So these efforts should go on.
Any other student, anything you want to discuss with ma'am? Any other? Ma'am, there are many students actually from our department who are preparing for UPSC as well. Sometimes they are just trying 2 or 3 times as well, or at the last time, whether they are the mains or the interviews, they have to struggle. So, what they have to start initially from, as there are also some lower class student as well, which they are definitely their aim is just for they are just setting their goals as well at this stage.
Okay, let me summarize. Maybe we can have a complete session sometime on preparation for the UPSC exam, which is, a presentation, a longer presentation in itself. Broadly, let me say that for the preliminary and the main examination, which is your first, which are the two first hurdles.
Right.
Before that, let me say this is the CSC is a very long drawn out process. It is not an examination, it's a whole process. So the first thing you should have is the stamina, that you should be in there for the long haul. You are making your career. Once you get into any of the civil services, your career is made. Barring barring any untoward events, your promotions are assured. You get a reasonably decent and prestigious living. Therefore, you should first make up your mind that it is not for a one-day examination. I'll just finish and get out. Right. It is another process. And once you start preparing and you get in, then you should, from the day you start preparation, start thinking like an officer. So this is one that that is the first thing you start with, that you should resolve to yourself that you are in for the long haul. Now, coming to the actual process, the preliminary examination is the multiple choice kind. You should have a broad-ranging knowledge about almost everything. Okay, not in-depth knowledge. Preparations for the civils, whether it is for preliminary or even for the main examination, is not the equivalent of preparing for a PhD. So I have done both, so I know. You don't require in-depth knowledge. What you need is analytical understanding and analytical expression. So which is very different from the kind of work which all of you would have done as part of your PhD research. Okay? So in-depth is not required. An analytical understanding and a broad spread, breadth of knowledge is more critical. The preliminary just tests, your basic knowledge. Therefore, you don't need to think about things, you just need to know. So it's about knowledge. When you come to the main examination, regardless of whichever subject you are choosing, I had at that time chosen English, which was my subject in MA, and history, which I had not studied before. But now the range of subjects are very many, and you can choose whatever is convenient to you. You should take one which is part of your degree, which you have already studied. So that limits the necessity for preparing. The other optionals can be something which you can do on your own without attending a class, which you can study and understand on your own. Now here you need analysis. Any problem, you should be able to think, analyze the problem, diagnose the problem, and provide solutions to the problem. Whether it is the historical event or whether it's a social science problem, the template is the same. So that you need to be well prepared. So you need to think about things. And since it is so, you will not have time to revise. Therefore, as and when you are covering a certain topic, write notes following the same template. Before the exam, do a quick reading and you'll be ready to go. The interview, which is, most people fear the interview. The interview is meant to see your aptitude. So they are not really seeing, whether you speak English well or whether, you are a very competent engineer or a very knowledgeable historian. They are seeing whether you are suitable for a life in administration. And therefore, most of the questions will not be testing your knowledge per se, They will be testing your approach to problems and your problem solving or solution finding abilities. The thing to do is to, go to the interview well rested and in a calm frame of mind. What they might do, and which is what they did to me, that somebody will ask you a question as you're answering, someone else will interrupt. How do you react? Do you get impatient? Do you get nervous? Or are you able to calmly finish the first answer and then go to the next? They will cross question you. Do you get panicky? Or are you able to approach and answer or address that particular cross question? So these are the kind of things broadly which you have to do. Have to prepare. So we can do a longer session, but broadly this is the way to go. And reading, there's virtually nothing which is of everything you should read, which you can't because time is limited. I for general studies I looked at Hindu. I never went to Times of India. Anyway, Times of India not very big in my time. Frontline, Economic Times, and Financial Express. And India Today was in my time much better than it was now. It is now. So India Today was another magazine which I read. Generally itself, I was broadly abreast of current affairs, so that was not an issue. For you, it is much easier because you have the internet. So almost everything is available. It was not there in my time. So documentaries are a good way to go. If you want to relax mentally, see a documentary on an important topic. So things like that.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for your guidance. Any other student who want to share anything? Anyone? I think there is no query now. So I will now please hand over to Dr. Harpreet ma'am. Please continue the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jaswinder. I, on behalf of Department of Chemistry, School of Chemical Engineering and Physical Sciences, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to Dr. Kalpana Gopalan for gracing your important work and sharing with us your findings and opinions today. We had an opportunity to hear your life-changing moments, and this will surely be going to encourage us to make some changes in our personal life as well, so that we all can hold hands in developing a greener, cleaner, and sustainable India. Thank you so much, ma'am, for gracing this occasion.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a nice day, all of you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you very much for attending the session.
They all can join the classes from 12 to 1 now.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Okay.